to introduce you to somebody who I think is just brilliant. I don't know. I don't know what y'all were doing when you were 17 or 18, but I bet you weren't doing what this guy was. This is Dave Aitel. He's the CEO of Immunity, Inc. Dave, his bio even says it. Dave is an interesting guy. He was recruited by the NSA, the National Security Administration, when he was 18 and ended up serving with them for 6 years at their headquarters. Officially, all he can say is that he was, quote, a computer scientist. So at 18, he went deep, deep, deep in security and can't even talk about it. Basically, he was a hacker for them, and his company employs about 30 to 40 penetration testers who operate around the nation. They do cybersecurity consulting for major financial institutions and manufacturing companies. So he's there to help them keep their privates private. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Harris. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. What can you teach us that's kind of new in the realm of cybersecurity? And is it just about business, or is there something that's a takeaway for individuals?
I think, honestly, you're seeing individuals get hit almost more than businesses. If you saw Sarah Palin's email troubles a couple years ago, you may realize that this can strike almost anybody. There's certainly a ton of new stuff coming out against businesses. But, you know, individual stars are getting hacked all the time. You saw all the major A-list celebrities on Hollywood getting hit, having all their videos posted online. I'm sure they didn't appreciate that. And, you know, the message out there is it could happen to you, and probably already did and you didn't realize.
Yeah, you know, every day it seems like I read about how information off of one of the friendship pages is not as secure as we once thought. And I know you're not supposed to put, well, I mean, who would put their social security? I'm sure some people do, though, even though we tell them not to. Social security number, you know, out there, their birth date, you know, the exact date, month, and year. You don't want to put those things in sequentiality because a lot of times that's a password to get into bank institutions and so on and so forth. But what are maybe some of the things that you can teach us that are not so obvious?
Well, I think the key thing here is, as you mentioned, all those things are not secrets, right? When you answer a question online, usually you answer it truthfully. So one of the key things that, I mean, because you're a truthful person, I'm sure, but I tend to lie.
Oh, so, and that serves you well, it sounds like.
It's honestly, there's a whole expertise to lying online and lying to people to get their information. So one of the major things that you'll see people do is call up a major organization or financial, pretend to be you, and then gather your information from them. And it's a simple way to get identity theft, and all you need is a telephone.
Well, and, you know, I've always wondered, when you are asked those things as part of a profile on one of the pages that you might sign up for, we do tend to be honest about it. I don't know why. I always wonder if somebody's going to cross-reference the information. But you're a big fan of just putting very little or putting something that is not really traceable back to you.
Well, it's really easy to do in terms of, you just say, you know, what's my favorite pet, and you name something else that you'll remember, maybe related to your pet. I always use, 1234 as my password, so makes things really easy for everybody. But, you know, I think most people, you can learn to separate your public and private lives, pull up a fake identity. You know, like your Facebook name doesn't have to be Harris, it could be something else. And it'll make your life easier in the future when all this stuff becomes very public.
All right. Now, there's something called Spokeo. What can you tell me about that?
Well, it's a sleazy little website thrown up by 5 guys that apparently is scaring everybody because they didn't realize what was available online about them. And it's just a collection of all sorts of data that everyone has always had access to, but didn't realize everyone always had access to. And you can look your ex-girlfriend or boyfriend up and learn where they live.
Really? And
it's fun.
How did they get all that information?
They just went to government sources. You know, your property tax rolls are all available publicly. You know, they can read your White Pages phone book stuff, pull that in. They're partnered with Yahoo. They pull in web searches. So they get all sorts of stuff that you could go out and access normally, but they make it really easy.
You know, I want to bring in a bigger brain on this. Clayton Morris is on the set, and he's it's true. He's not, in addition to being one of the hosts of Weekend Fox and Friends, which I watch every Saturday and Sunday in my fuzzy slippers. It's good to have you here this morning. You actually have come in. You're going to teach us some things about forming apps for the iPod and iPad. But I wonder, do you have any questions for Dave?
Well, I mean, it's curious. I mean, Spokeo, I'm interested in because it's one of these sites, and Dave can speak to this, that all of this information is already out there. It already exists. It's these government records that he's talking about. It's these tax rolls. It's all of these things. And so So you do a search on Spokeo, Dave, and a lot of this stuff is erroneous. I mean, it has me living in northern Pennsylvania with people that I don't even know, but it has my parents there in the information. It's using old, outdated information. How much of a threat is this stuff really?
Well, and you're totally right. Most of it will be either stuff you already knew or stuff that's false. And, from a voyeuristic perspective, it's very interesting. But, I mean, if you want to think of it as a threat, the future of these sorts of things, you're looking at things like, what if the spam that got sent to you was actually categorized just for you? What if they had your best friend's name from high school? A lot of these things you think, now, oh, it's not a big deal. But people are able to guess your passwords. They're able to learn a lot more about you than you think.
But isn't there more information out there right now on Google? I mean, I could do a Google search, and the top 10 results carry more information about me, either via Facebook or LinkedIn or these other profiles, or even any article, maybe an old high school article that was written about me where I, scored a number of points in high school sports over another individual. Isn't that stuff already sort of readily available just doing a quick Google search?
It totally is, and this is a site set up by 5 dudes in probably a basement somewhere. And you got to think, what would be available if they also had access to your tax information, to your credit card information, to your phone numbers that you call? If you look at, Americans are very picky about privacy. If you look at what, an actual government can do to you, that stuff gets really scary really fast.
Well, I'm reading more about this, and I just did Google, and Clayton Morris, you did score more points than the other guy. I just want to make that very clear for our audience, because that's important.
The key would have been I would have had to have played sports, and then I would have been able to... No, I did.
So, I hear what you're saying about protect ourselves, but, isn't it too late for a lot of people? I mean, if you already have a Facebook page or one of these others, haven't you already put the information out there? Which begs the question, where does it all go?
Well, I think you're totally right. I mean, one of the great things about it is this stuff makes you aware of what people can know about you. So now you know that they all know that you have a cat named Larry, and maybe you're a little too attached. These things are embarrassing now, but in the future, I mean, this is what changes society slowly and sort of gradually, and you see people react to this and try to enact barriers to prevent it from happening.
Jeff Jarvis talks about in his book, What Would Google Do? He says, we just need to live in public. He's working on a new book called Public Parts. And he says, if you live in public, and then you don't have any expectation of, if you're out there already and you let people,
is true. That is true.
You're not worried about it. If you just accept that we're in this new way of thinking about society and this sort of openness, then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, the problem is, though, that we're not really socialized that way. We're still socialized in many regards to keep secrets. And all you have to do is look at the domestic abuse stats in this country, and you know that secrets are still very much a part of who we are as a human race. Very sad, but that is a very telling point. So, secret keeping is still one of those things that we assume that we can do in some realm. It would be great if we just all assumed we're very, very public people. But, I remember my grandmother's 99, and she used to say, keep some things to yourself. I mean, that's how you keep your identity. Otherwise, it belongs to the world. I want to give you the last word on this, Dave, because we have a lot of people who are tuning in, and I'm posting simultaneously on different sites right now about this issue because it is such a big one. Talk to me about, just quickly, some of the dangers of this.
All right, well, the biggest danger is that you're going to have your reputation dragged through the mud because of something you did while you're drunk. So you got to be real careful when you're posting on your cell phone what you did last night. And that, realistically, for most people, is the biggest danger they're going to have.
Okay, and there is a site about what you did last night. All the texts that people send out.
Great.
Scary stuff. David Aitel, thank you very much. Not a day over 18, still.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we'll see you next time. We're going to take a quick break. When I come back, Clayton Morris is going to educate us on how do they create those apps for iPhones and iPads and all the great juicy stuff with regard. And I did bring my orange friend, my iPad. We'll be right back.